So today we're going to be talking about how we can get large language models to act as our personal coaches, and particularly looking at the skill set in what's it called in copywriting. Now, can I get a thumbs up if anyone has heard of the term copywriting? Not for contracts and whatnot, but more for the sake of marketing and ad. So if I can get a thumbs up in the chat, so Candice thumbs up, one for Leanne, Jacqueline. Okay, this is great. So, a fair few people in the session. If you don't know what copywriting is, do not worry. I'm going to give a quick explanation for what it is, how it applies, and why we're going to be focusing on this in general. Wow, quite a few of us actually know what copywriting is. That's great. Wonderful. So, for those of you who do know what copywriting is, if any other member here in the session asks any questions, particularly around what copywriting is, and I miss it in the chat, please do feel free to help them out, and that way we can hopefully collaborate together and continue building on this safe space. So, for those of you who do know what copywriting is, if I get any of this wrong, do not start chasing me down and sharpening your pitchforks. End of the day, I'm a techie. I know about AI. I can tell you about AI. I didn't do so well at school in English, in my English subjects, but hey ho, here we are. So put really simply, copywriting is the art of persuading readers to take a specific action. So for example, that can be convincing someone to buy a product or joining a newsletter. It's really important for creating what's known as brand identity and, in some part driving sales. A good copywriter understands their audience and, you know, can use persuasive techniques in their writing. So the style of writing that they use to encourage any particular action. It's really powerful in businesses to not only connect with customers, but also to help you achieve your marketing goals based on a varying number of platforms. And that is the very formal definition of copywriting. But let's say you don't work in sales, you're not in marketing. Why should we care about this? End of the day, boiling it down, being good at copywriting can help us sell our ideas and visions. Now, you might not realize, but we all do this on a regular basis. At work, it can take the form of writing notes for upcoming points you want to make in a meeting, that self-prep that you do, that we all do prior to a big meeting, where we write down essentially the scripts that we're going to be reading out. End of the day, if we're trying to convince someone of our ideas and whatnot, we have to be good at copywriting because we need to convey our ideas and our points. And that can always go all the way go to pitching new ideas to your colleagues and clients. Even trying to convince everyone to ditch playing Monopoly during the holidays can sometimes invoke a lot of copywriting because you have to go at it. You have to write essays in the family group chat. And hey, sometimes it yields results, sometimes it doesn't. But let's be honest, whenever we want to switch to the traditional game that we all play in the family holidays, it's definitely an uphill battle. But going into the more pragmatic elements of copywriting, this is where, looking at the applications of where can we actually practice this and interweave with this and get our reps in here in this actual session. So how does AI play into this? Now we understand the fundamentals, let's explore the various applications of where ChatGPT in copywriting can definitely help us with, that formation of language, but also content ideation. So for example, some points are the fact that ChatGPT can generate content ideas and help us brainstorm elements. It can also help us if you're in the business of SEO, which is known as search engine optimization, which essentially helps you rank your website higher on Google when someone goes to search in best places to find rubber ducks. And if I had gone ahead with my business plan, as we covered in session 7 or session 6, of actually starting the Rubber Duck Codex company, that'll be very important for people to see the Codex Rubber Duck companies right at the top of Google. But ChatGPT can help us boost that up there. It can also help us create rough outlines for blog posts and summarize articles. But we've covered a lot of large language model tools in the past 8 weeks, past 2 months, right? So I have a question, and I kind of want to put it to those who've been here from the beginning, or even though this might be your first session. Can anyone guess as to, or not guess, but can anyone answer the question as to why we're particularly going to be focusing on ChatGPT in this case, in this session? Can anyone remember all the way back from session 1, the reason as to why we want to be using ChatGPT? As Peter said, it is good at creativity. 100%. So Sarah and Rebecca hit the nail on the head. Candice as well, as it's consistently growing and whatnot, and it has further inputs as such. ChatGPT tends to be the go-to for creative writing. It's one of its main strengths. Now, one thing that we have noted around is the fact that it gets so creative sometimes it does things known as hallucinations, which essentially it just makes up gibberish. I can see Candace laughing. That's an actual term. um, no joke intended, but really and truly, it's something that is quite powerful and can really help us in this case. So generating copy is something that someone could say we could completely rely on ChatGPT or large language model tools in of itself, right? They really help us come up with eloquent expressions and they reduce the need for the additional human input. Think about it like this. If I said to you about 3 years ago, I'm going to come up with a computer program that can generate 100 blog posts in about 10 minutes and sound somewhat fairly professional and help you boost your website rankings on Google, you'll probably want to pay a lot of money, or at the very least, you'll be interested to hear a bit more about what I had to say. However, I think this is really important to understand. It's not a substitute for human expertise and collaboration. So to get the best output, we always want to combine the strengths of large language models with human input, because a lot of the times this results in high quality and engaging content. The problem with completely depending 100% on AI tools, as we've covered in previous weeks, is that they are just that, tools. They're not a replacement for us. They're additive to our skill set. And so it's really important for us to note that we always want to make sure that we are cross-checking, we are proofreading any content that comes out, because the last thing we want to do is put in into ChatGPT, generate me this fantastic email that I'm going to send to my boss or this really important client of mine or this really important person, and it gets completely wrong, but we don't sense check it and it sends off and it lands us in a bit of a pickle. So I'm going to take a break there. Thumbs up if that makes sense. Thumbs down if you need a bit more time to read over stuff. I can go back to previous slides. And if you have any questions, please do make sure to pop it in the chat. We have some time now. Alternatively, you can DM me privately and I can read out your question and keep you anonymous. Wonderful. All right then. So given the basis of that, one of the main generating elements that we can look at is actually blog posts. So the first task for today's session is using ChatGPT or your preferred LLM. It doesn't matter necessarily in terms of the nuances for this session, as you remember, I'm sure many of you know, a lot of the skills we talk about are tool agnostic, because at the end of the day, ChatGPT could go down tomorrow. So we're going to make sure that all of our learners can move over to the next big tool. So using ChatGPT or your preferred large language model, write a prompt to generate 5 blog posts on a topic that you're interested in, particularly something that you have knowledge on, and we'll leave it there. And if you can sort of share what you got out of it and your thoughts around it, because even just from the jump, how did it fare? And so whilst everyone's doing that, for those of you who are new and you're not sure exactly what to put, we'll quickly go through a walkthrough together. So as we can see here, I have ChatGPT open, and if you can very simply, please generate me 5 blog posts, 5 blog post titles around rubber ducks. And it can be very simple, such as that, and hit enter. And as we can see here, I've got 5 different blog posts. Sorry, just to clarify, everyone, I meant blog post titles. I realized that so we don't need to generate the entire blog post, just the titles on their own. As such, apologies for that. Quickly just change that. And once you're done, if you don't mind sharing in the chat what you generated, but then also how did you find it? Did it bring up something interesting? As I think Rebecca spotted something that I missed. Uh, the fascinating history of rubber ducks from bath toy to cultural icon. Hey, listen, we're talking about them for a reason, right? And so once you've generated the 5 blog post titles, if you can put a thumbs up in the chat, if you can also share what you've generated, that'd be really cool. So Tonya has generated 5 engaging blog posts for traveling in the Glacier National Park. I'm gonna be honest, Tonya, again, my geography is terrible. I have no idea where that is, but that sounds really cool. Uh, Someone else put titles around I assume vision language AI. Candice did 5 blog posts tailored for the workforce consultant positions. Wonderful. Tanya says it's in Montana here in the US. I know where the US is. Again, I'm really sorry. Absolutely not got the foggiest about where Montana is. I'm going to look it up afterwards on Google Maps. Promise you that. All right, then. So I can see a couple of people have finished that. So once you're done, if you can just put a thumbs up in the chat. Leanne says, at work here, no access to ChatGPT. So Leanne's got the virtual popcorn out. Not to worry, Leanne. Thanks for letting us know, and I appreciate you staying on. So Undine is done, Pete is done, Neil as well. So is Jacqueline. So is Gerard. Give it about 5 more seconds. Neil has generated 5 blog posts for hiking in the Appalachian Trail, which is really cool to see in spring 2025. Nice and specific. Nice. All right, then let's move on then. So one thing which I want to talk about briefly, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to maximize my screen to present from here, is something around GPT 3.5 and 4.0. Now, right now, this isn't applicable, but I think it's a really good place to sort of pause and understand the differences between the different types of large language models that we utilize. Now, end of the day, typically, you know, it's not necessarily a case where we have to particularly stick to one large language model. But as we all know, there's hundreds, if not probably thousands of AI tools out there and chatbots we can use to generate us content. So what happened was that we found this example where an individual put in the exact same prompt. And I know many of you have actually asked about this beforehand, is what happens if I put the same prompt word for word into one AI tool and another AI tool? Will it give me the exact same output? I just wanted to take this as a case to demonstrate and articulate the nuances and how things will actually change depending on what kind of tool you're using. Now, at the base level and in the position that we're going to be using AI tools, it doesn't really matter that much traditionally. And so we don't really need to worry about it. But I think it's quite important to understand saying, well, okay, well, GPT 3.5 was sort of the older version that ChatGPT used to run on. And GPT-4 is the new version, so sorry, 4.0. And we can already see here that even when we look at the first headline that it generated, so 3.5 generated, unlock the secrets to making money, writing about tech. And then the second one on GPT 4.0 said, unlock your earnings, top secrets to profitable tech writing revealed. Now, when it comes to generating content ideas, both GPT 3.5 and 4.0 have their strengths, but neither really delivered the perfect copy for us in a single prompt. And I think that's also something to stress on. So again, using this sort of example to sort of pause quickly and reiterate the fact that if a new tool comes out next week, or let's say tomorrow, and it promises you the world and everything within it, please always remember that a lot of times we can get to our desired outcome through the right prompting, and not necessarily we need to go ahead and get on the bandwagon for the new tools, particularly if that tool requires you to pay. So remember, by writing effective prompts, we don't actually have to pay for the brand spanking new tools as such, but instead we can leverage what we currently have access to. And that's really important for me to make sure that everyone knows about. So the suggestions generated by both models were unsimilar to what we could have brainstormed in about half an hour. But in this case, it took us a few minutes at most. And that's the case when it comes to what we've generated from the blog post just now in the previous exercise. As for whether, using the latest model or using the latest, large language model made a significant difference, it doesn't really seem so. And so it's important to understand that we can actually dictate a lot of the outcome, and we can dictate how well things are going to be produced for us. And I think that's something for us to sort of take stock of and have a little pause here. So, given that, guiding ChatGPT with specific instructions can ensure that its output is in line with your preferred brand style or tone. Or if you don't know what that means, essentially just think about it the way you speak, right? The way you want to communicate over your thoughts and feelings. For example, if your brand, that can be your company's brand or your own personal brand, we all have personal brands out there, uses a formal tone with minimal exclamation points, you can inform ChatGPT of that so that it aligns its output accordingly. So it allows us to give a more tailored and consistent responses, which are more akin and similar to how we would write something, you know? Again, it's never going to be perfect the first time around, but it's going to require a lot of refinement. So given our blog posts, I would like for you all to go back and try this with what we were prompted with. So again, keeping in the same window, we then want to ask, and I can sort of give a if I just go back here and I'll just move over. If I go back here, we can actually say, well, you know, the fascinating history of rubber ducks from Bath Toy. I don't particularly speak like this. It's very formal. So I can actually say, this is all very formal. Can you make it a more relaxed tone of voice? And for those of you who don't know what tone of voice means, that's literally just the way you speak. So it can be your vernacular. It's sort of the language we use. I can also input to say, well, I am also from London and will be creating these blogs for other Londoners. I'm also from the East End and will be East End, which I am. I'm an East Ender. I'm really dumbing back my accent normally. But already we can see this is more something that's akin to how maybe if I was in Whitechapel, Brick Lane Market or Petticoat Lane Market, how I'd be my stand of rubber ducks, how I might be selling it. And maybe that's the type of tone of voice that I want to be communicating over. So for example, it's done this really poorly, but rubber ducks more than just a bath toy, mate. That's not how something I would create nor blog. But again, we're moving more into the right direction. So given that, given the way you speak, if there's any particulars, can you refine the output? And it may take a couple goes, but can you refine the output to something that would be more akin to how you would say something to a friend, or how you'd, if you're doing a presentation, how would you speak? And so if you want to do that and then share your outcomes, you know, did it really make a difference? Do you require to actually have to go back and, you know, be a bit more specific about things? Pollen raises a really good point that Grammarly for changing the tone is a really, really good tool. The free tier is very extensive, and I do recommend everyone check it out, the free tier. And Candice and Rebecca both highlight my second suggestion, where it said quacking fun, 7 cool ways to use rubber ducks around the house. For those of you who didn't know, that's a glimpse into how I normally speak with my dad, who is a old East Londoner, and he's Cockney. So given that, if everyone could take a second and go back and refine, if you want, you can actually set yourself a further task of actually going to a new chat and constructing a more verbose and more extensive prompt by setting the context out, the way in which you want to sound tone of voice. Because in this case, when it comes to writing a prompt around this, as we've spoken about, context is really important. So setting your tone of voice, your branding, the particular way that you speak in terms of formal, informal, can be seen as setting the context. So you can try that out if anyone wants a bit more of a challenge. So someone just put in the chat, I wanted to make sure a layperson can understand it. So it has simplified and it's given pretty well. So how vision and language AI is changing the way computers see and talk. And so if we go back up to the initial one, so essentially what the person, Banerjee has shared in the chat was that initially their title was The Rise of Vision Language AI Transforming How Machines. And it's quite difficult for someone who's not very, let's say, clued up or, you know, how do we say it? Who's experience in that particular field, but the title, How Vision and Language AI is Changing the Way Computers See and Talk, is much more accessible and much more digestible. Great to see. So we have Tonya, who's changed the titles to be more relaxed and Gen X friendly vibe. Not sure where Gen X is really on the actual hierarchy of things. I'm Gen Z, well, I'm Gen Z slash millennial, but is that Gen X below, above, couple above? No idea. We'll leave that for another day. I'll send everyone an email out and crowdsource some answers. And then Candice has actually tailored the blog posts for high school students, and they're really accessible. And skills for success, how to rock a career in workforce consulting, a lot more to the point, a lot more accessible, really cool to see. So for those of you who've wrapped up, if you can just put a thumbs up in the chat. You don't need to share what your output was, but at least that way we know that we can continue on. Wonderful. All right then, cool. So something else that ChatGPT is really good for, or large language models in general, is creating rough outlines. Now, outlines, put very simply, if you're not familiar with them, they give us structure and direction and help us overcome writer's block. Put simply, they allow us to break down the process of writing, let's say, a large document into manageable sections, and they also can help us facilitate collaboration. Hear me out. We've all been there. There's a group of you, and you're either in the office, you're at college, you're at school, or hey, you're in a family project for whatever particular reason. And all you have is a title, a load of coffee, and if you leave that unchecked, just chaos, absolute anarchy consumes. You know, people fight over particular elements. Everyone has a thought process in terms of what they should be contributing and whatnot. But outlines actually help us when it comes to giving some order to things as such. And so by using outlines for a document, it allows us to streamline collaboration between writers, editors, the person who's just part of the group project, but you're not really sure what they do as such, and you can give them more of a, guided approach. And they break the writing process down into more manageable sections. So this is really key when it comes to, collaboration as such. And it's something that it's a really powerful tool, particularly when it comes to saving time for working on, large scale projects or even small ones when you want to get just the bare bone structure down quite quickly. So for this task, taking one of the blog titles that we've created from earlier, could you then ask ChatGPT to generate the outlines of the project, of the blog? Then from there, there's a couple stages in here. You can then actually ask it to select a particular outline through a further prompt and get it to generate some content. And then finally, refine the output so it aligns to your desired tone of voice and brand. So a fair bit here. So we'll take a few minutes. And whilst everyone's doing that, if anyone has any questions as such, please do feel free to either come off mute or pop it in the chat. So Peter's done that. Peter, how did you find the output? Was it quite easy, straightforward, or did you find there was a bit of friction there that you had to go back and, was it quite a succinct experience? And please do share sort of the snippet that the blog title and the snippet that I generated. It'll be really cool to see how it went. Ah, so Peter's using Claude, which is really cool. Nice. So Ondina, if you are using Microsoft Copilot, that's actually ChatGPT under the hood. I can explain more about that at the end of the session, but essentially Microsoft Copilot is powered by ChatGPT. So using the same stuff, which is great to see. So Jennifer, as we covered earlier, it doesn't necessarily matter in terms of which one you want to use. 4.0 is the newer, shinier large language model. However, 3.5 works just as well, provided you just give it the right prompts. That's all that really matters in this situation. So Banerjee has given an output, which is really cool. So vision language AI is transforming how we interact with technology, allowing machines to see images and talk about them. And that looks really accessible. Nice. Banerjee, I have a little add-on task for you. Can you try and change the English from US to UK? And how quickly can you do that? Nice, as we can see that. Nice one, Banerjee. That kept the tone of voice, basically kept it word for word. Just changed the Z's to S's, which is much proper and a lot better. And as always, if you don't fancy sharing your output, that's completely fine. But if you can just pop a thumbs up in the chat, so that way I know who's still working on it and who's ready to move on. No pressure though, as this is quite a large task, and so we can still have a couple minutes to spare. Wonderful. Jacqueline's done. Tanya's done. So is Neil and Joanne. Following as well. Probably give it about 30 more seconds. And Ondina. So Gerard said, interesting that my prompt generated bulleted outline. Um, so in which case, I think that's something where in which this is the issue, right? It's never going to be guaranteed that because everyone sets out for a particular objective, that we all get to the same outcome. And so I think this is where, Gerard, is there anything, you don't need to actually go and implement this, but anything that you think you could employ to ensure that it doesn't give you a bullet points? How do you think we could work around that? Did anyone have a guess as to, well, not a guess, but I think, oh, so there we are. Joanne said, refine the prompt to be more specific about the format. Exactly. Joanne hit it with a hammer. Absolutely not, Joanne, because we are all in a cost of living crisis globally. Technology is expensive, and so you do not want to be buying a new phone or laptop. So please do not hit ChatGPT with a hammer because you'll be destroying your own tech. If it's your workplace, hey, that's up for HR to deal with. Ondina, exactly. If asking for an outline, I would expect bullet points though. So this is the thing, right? Going back to sort of what we should view um, AI as is this super intelligent thing that has zero context in terms of what we are trying to achieve. So um, whenever we go to actually try and get an output to reach a particular objective, we have to be incredibly, incredibly explicit in terms of what type of output we are looking for. So, in one hand, an outline to someone may, as to Gerard, may have been just a short paragraph-esque sort of text output. However, as we can see here, Ondina would expect bullet points. So this is actually a great point where, unless we're incredibly explicit, it's going to be quite jarring of experience because a lot of times we're looking to save time here. But if we have to go back, edit things, and sort of copy and paste into, let's say, Microsoft Word or Google Sheets or wherever that has you, and then we have to format it ourselves, it costs us, it kind of makes it redundant, us using AI in a very, very minute way. And we kind of say, well, why am I having to do this? I want it to be completely seamless. So again, this is where, being very explicit about the type of format, setting that as a context or setting that as a outcome. Remember covering the 5 elements of prompt writing, prompt engineering. For those of you who may not have seen that session, that's in session 2, which you can catch up on via the content center. But again, this is another experience for us when it comes to prompt engineering. Gerard says that it's a skill we all have to learn, but I'm really happy to say you all are learning it and you all are doing absolutely fantastic at it. So well done. And I think the fact that we're getting into nuances of it shows you how far everyone has come so far, which is great to see. All right then. So with that, I assume everyone is sorted. Everyone finished? Thumbs up if I'm going to ask for another thumbs up as we took a little break. Wonderful, Candice. Thank you. Thank you, Pauline. Wait for a couple more. Neil, Gerard, Andina. Wonderful. Let's crack on then. Thank you, Tonya. All right then. So one really cool element of ChatGPT is that it can summarize, notice the S, not the Z Americans, just to let you know, is that it can summarize articles. One of the best ways to utilize it is to have it summarize all evident points about a specific subject or an argument, ensuring that no crucial details are overlooked. End of the day, we are just humans. So a lot of times when presented with large amount of information that can be either in documents or articles as such, it's really handy to have a a large language model to essentially summarize it all for us. Now, the reason why I'm not reading this verbatim is the fact that one of our instructors, Arjun, wrote this slide initially and then decided, hey, this is too much text. I'm going to summarize it with Canva's Magic Write tool. Essentially, that's Canva's AI tool in of itself. But as we can see here, it's actually pulled up the main points. I'm pretty sure this was like a good 400, 500 word slide initially, which I then had to say to him needs to be a lot shorter. But hopefully we can see its abilities there. Now, a lot of times going back to the sort of tangible differences between different large language models, this is where we start to see things differentiate quite a bit. Now, what I'll do is that I will actually present so we can see this in full element. So as we can see here, the individual here asked to summarize the most important arguments for and against using wind turbines to generate electricity. Now, immediately here, we can see the 2 different types of responses on how verbose it is. And this particularly is attributed to the fact that when it comes to using more, new tools, new large language models, that tends to mean that they have a lot more data that they've been trained on. Or alternatively, it means that they're hooked up to the internet and so they can do that searching for us as such. So something just to bear in mind that if we're going to be using tools that we know are quite outdated, and at this point in time, I don't think anyone's going to be using a tool that is quote unquote outdated. But as the years go on, it's something to bear in mind to say, well, this could actually be where I see a big difference in terms of the type of response I get back. So essentially, we have 2 tasks here. But before we go on to that, I'm just going to go back into here and I want to actually pick something up. So can someone give me a news topic, again, non-political, ideally rubber duck focused, that I can search up or share in the chat that I can pull up? You're not broken me, Jan. It's my passion. Yeah. And it's a reason why I still advocate in our Slack messages channels that I want to take these sessions because I'm trying to gaslight myself to start a rubber duck company. So Candice says planets align in the night sky this week. Wonderful, Candice. So if I just copy that Uh, Head over, and we can find a news article. Here we are, 7 days ago. Wonderful. So a lot of times what we could do is, there's a lot of information. End of the day, we can skim through it. Previously, we looked at things like Monica AI, which actually give us these summaries. Just now, we actually saw Google's Gemini, which is now being built into Google, where it gives us a quick overview of sort of the search results, and similar to Perplexity, which we looked at in previous weeks, gives us the sources here. But I tell you what, let's imagine that none of that exists. And instead, we've been sent an internal news link to an article. And this is just something that our company has sent to us, and Google has no access to this. So we can typically take this. We can actually go onto here. And if we open a new element, and we can copy and paste it here. Now, something to note about, we do want to make sure that we're using ChatGPT 4.0. So that's something to bear in mind. If you don't have access to ChatGPT 4.0 for whatever reason, what you can do, we can just highlight this and just copy and paste it in if we want to. But everyone should have access to ChatGPT 4.0 as it's their free element. And what we can then say is, please read this article. And we don't know what being so formal, but I guess that's the Brit in me. Article, and give me a summary. And if we do that, what we can see is that it then essentially searches the site and then gives me a nice little output. So from there, given that walkthrough, so to speak, again, wasn't rubber ducks, not going to be salty about it, happens, like it's in a way. But the first task that I would like everyone to do is find an article, paste it into ChatGPT, or alternatively, ask it to copy and paste a passage and into the prompt box directly if for some reason it cannot access the internet, and then ask it questions about the content and see whether it got it right or not, particularly around sometimes ChatGPT, and I use this term because it's just so fitting, and it may not be as appropriate as people may like, but sometimes ChatGPT does gaslight us, and it's a bit off, but it's something to know about. Alternatively, if you want, you can query its knowledge base, where in which we can ask ChatGPT to provide us insights on a particular subject, and then get it to elaborate around the chosen subject, leveraging its knowledge drawn from its training data, and essentially assess its ability to predict follow-on text and cover key talking points. So, for example, if you ask about, let's say, what's the topic around best practices for education, does it out of the box give us, I've tried really hard not to say rubber ducks, but hey, here we are. It doesn't give us sort of the prompts for generic educational best practices when teaching people. Alternatively, does it list out that, for K to 12, I think that's the term you guys use in the States for sort of the young for children education? Does it basically segment that between K-12, university, professional upskilling, and give us the best practices from there? Or does it require us to actually do a lot of prompting? Now, if it's something for the second task of knowledge application that you are very knowledgeable in, test it, see how clever ChatGPT is, or desired large language model. Is it accurate, or does it hallucinate? Done a lot of talking. I'll let you all crack on. So Polly mentions that they've uploaded a lecture on OneNote on ChatGPT and asked it to make them a multiple choice questions out of their handwritten notes, which is really cool to see. We'll actually be covering some of that in the final session. So I really like the fact that you're already doing that, Bolin. We'll be able to access apps like Flipboard. Candice, for accessing general documents and whatnot, I would advise that you just copy paste snippets of it. The reason being is just to ensure that there's no private information already in there, and it prevents us from having to screen that out and think, oh no, I've just put in someone's work address and whatnot, which is personal identifiable information as such. And so it's just something that I recommend whenever it comes to work documents that could be sensitive information, just to put that into there. So Ondina's got a summary of the article, the 2024 NFL schedule. National Football League should not be called that. It should be called National Egg League because you don't guys use your feet and you guys throw an egg around essentially. But hey ho, it's American football for you. And it's giving sort of the international games when they're going to be played preseason, along with the holiday games, streaming, and kickoff, which is really cool to see, and a link to the full article, which is really nice addition that I've not seen yet in ChatGPT. And all right then. So if we can get a thumbs up once everyone is done, because I'm just conscious of time. Wonderful. Neil's done. Tanya's done. Joanne stole from rugby and soccer. Can't argue with that, indeed. But it's football, but hey, soccer, sure. Uh, Banerjee's done. Wonderful. Around a new species of piranha lightfish, which is really cool to see. Named after Sauron from Lord of the Rings. Oh, I'm gonna have to give that for a read after. And Candice got something from the article from The Cut, which is an interview. Those are really helpful for going through notes and whatnot to summarize sort of interview points and stuff like that. That can be also done with meeting minutes as such. Helps create summaries for that. Just remembering always not to put in personal identifiable information. All right then. So that brings us to the end of the session. I won't really repeat what's said in here. Again, I'm pretty sure that my fellow instructor, Arjun, decided to just summarize this whole, well, the entire presentation with the Canva AI tool. So we're going to skip on this. But essentially, I'm hoping that everyone walks away to understand how we can use ChatGPT not only to improve our skills around copywriting, but also to help leverage our certain elements of data aggregation, speeding things up as such, and just make sure that things are a bit more, convenient for us. So I got a quick announcement. Wasn't really informed about this, but apparently we're building something at the moment and we are looking for beta users. I should know about this because I'm building it at the moment. And so essentially we're building a new community platform. Right now it's still in beta test. Well, we're going to be launching this in beta testing in the coming months. If you'd like to test out and try and oh, okay, nice. The team left me a nice little note. So if you'd like to test out and try and break my code, as we're building out a community platform for everyone to sort of stay in touch, for us to continue to learn from one another, you'll get access to myself and all the other instructors throughout the team as such. Just please keep an eye out for our email that will be coming probably end of next week. There'll be limited spaces, completely free of charge. You'll never have to pay for it as such. And yeah, I guess we got one sign up, Candice. Wonderful. All right. That brings us to the end of the session. We are 3 minutes over. So if you do need to run, please have a wonderful day. Happy Labor Day. Someone can just nod if I'm right. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's happening next Monday. Wonderful. No idea what that's about, but fair. But yeah, any questions, please feel free to pop it in the chat, come off mute. Alternatively, just as an announcement for last week's session, I didn't get a chance to send around the recap email, mostly because there was a bit of an issue, bank holiday and everything. Things just got a bit hectic over here. So I'll be sending a recap for last week and this week's session all in sort of tomorrow or Monday's email. Well, most of you, if it's on Monday, well, most of you guys will be, I'll get you out of email messages, but yeah, go from there. But yeah, if not, have a wonderful Friday, have a fantastic long weekend, and yeah, I hope to see you all next week. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.